Hello, and welcome back to 1851's Franchise Legal Players series. My name is Ben Warren, and I'm excited to be joined today by Beata Krakus, a franchisor attorney with Greensfelder. Beata, how are you?
Good, thank you. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm great, thanks. So let's jump right into the questions. First of all, how did you end up specializing in franchise law, and what drew you to the field?
Yeah, I think like most franchise lawyers, it's not like I went into law school dreaming of franchise law. It was a bunch of different circumstances. But if anything, if there was ever a silver lining for me, at least with 9/11 and the recession that followed, it was that I ended up finding my passion for franchise law. I started at a large law firm around that time, and was supposed to do M&A work and corporate work. And that work all dried up with the recession that followed 9/11. So I kind of bounced around a little bit, did some bankruptcy work as well, and then somebody said, "Well, you should check out the franchise group because they do things that are similar to corporate. So you'll learn stuff that will be relevant." And I kind of found the franchise group and never looked back.
And these days, in 2021 and 2022, sort of the post-COVID or the ongoing COVID landscape, what do you think is the biggest legal hurdle facing franchisors?
Well, there's one that I think has been going on for well over a decade right now, and that's definitely joint employer and misclassification. So, I mean, and we can keep talking about that forever, but I think that the new one that a lot of franchisors will have to come to grips with in the next year or so is related to how the systems have changed because of the pandemic. And most franchisors and franchisees had to implement some kind of temporary measures and during the pandemic to stay afloat. And in some cases, those have turned out to be great. And at least for most, for the franchisor and for most franchisees, but that may not be uniform, or there may be other reasons that a franchisee doesn't want to continue that way, or want to have some variation, or doesn't feel like the pandemic version of the system is what they bought. So for franchisors, I think it will be reviewing their agreements and thinking about the relationships with their franchisees to make sure that they can actually require these changes long term, for example.
What is the most common mistake you see franchise brands making from a legal perspective, whether these are clients of yours or just in general? Something
Yeah. No, I think there's as many as there are franchisors and franchisees, right? But it's the ones that I tend to focus on are the ones where I have to call my litigation colleagues and say, "Hey, what do we do about this?" And those also come up in a lot of different circumstances. But I would say that a lot of them they find their source in not doing, the franchisors and maybe franchisees not doing their diligence early on. Franchisors, especially startup franchisors, are super eager to find new franchisees, and anybody who shows interest and is willing to sign on the dotted line, as to say, they will sell a franchise to, and that's not always. It's kind of penny wise, pound foolish. You get a franchisee in, but then you buy yourself a lot of issues because maybe they didn't quite understand what the system entailed, or maybe they're just not the right person for your system. So that leads to a lot of issues in my experience.
So, Beata, you work with franchisors, but if you were speaking to somebody who was a prospective franchisee, somebody who's thinking about signing on with a brand, what advice might you give them?
It's almost the flip side of what I was just talking about, because it's franchising. At the end of the day, it's a relationship. It's like, you join a brand, you join a family, and you want to make sure you know what family you're joining. And that comes down to in a large extent, to who the franchisor is and how they operate their system. You'll find that there's systems out there that have very detailed controls, and everything is regulated, and it's down to how many ice cubes there should be in a soda, right? And then you have others that are not like that at all. There's definitely a trademark, there's a general feel for what the brand is, but they are not going to give you that support or control, depending on how you see it. And that will definitely impact the franchisee's experience. So, that's probably what I would say. If you can figure that out, and it's typically not that difficult to do. Every FDD has a list of all franchisees in the system. attached to it, so you can, you know, call the list and learn from existing franchisees what their experience is, and that should help you in figuring out what your life as a franchisee in this brand may look like.
Yeah, absolutely, essential advice.
Yeah.
So final question for you: what has kept you in this field? What do you love about working with franchisors?
Yeah, so you know, it's funny, and I sometimes, you know, when I speak to younger attorneys or associates in my firm, say that, you know, just because you like the law, you shouldn't assume that all practice areas are created equal. And so, to me, it's very much the ability to be involved on how should I say this? It's not on the management level as such, but it's help problem solve. I love problem solving, finding the creative solutions to issues that franchisors may have, and kind of figuring out how to make it work. So that ability to help, and that closeness that you have to your clients and to the management side of the business, I really like that, and that would definitely keep me in franchising, hopefully for a long time to come.
Great. Well, Beata, those are all the questions I have for you today. So thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to check in again with you soon.
That'd be great. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay, take care.
You too.